What's up, guys? Welcome to the Eline Media Twitch channel. This is Natalie coming at you live from Manhattan with some game making stuff. This stream, of course, is for our game builders at Yukodit. So if you're one of the folks who is on our in-person game making team from Yukodit, as usual, you are welcome to say hi in the chat and let me know you're here. I'll be talking about your projects today for the April Game Making Challenge and hopefully welcoming Ali to the chat. I see you're there, Ali. Welcome. Good to see you. Absolutely. I'll definitely mod you in. I'm so glad you're joining me tonight. So, just always enjoying hanging out here right at the beginning. Ali, I hope you're having a good Tuesday evening. As always, great to talk to you in this format where I talk and you guys type. Um, we're hard at work on a challenge to make a game in April. And, if you're just joining in this week, I think we might just be having Thomas join as well. You guys can get up to date by heading to the website for Make Room Online. The website for Make Room Online, of course, is makeroom.elinemedia.com/online learning. I can actually show that to you guys right here on the screen. I'll pull that up. Right here. So you can see here from there we go. Makeroom.elinemedia.com/online learning is where you guys can go to get updates on what we're working on all together. Some of you guys have been coming since we started. We have Christian and Greg, I think, have been. And if anybody else is joining, of course, this is a public stream. So you're absolutely free to follow along and get the game building education that we give here. But overall, what we've been working on over the past couple of weeks is setting up a Unity project and getting ready to work on a game throughout the month of April for the April 2020 Digital Game Making Challenge. And that is an open challenge where you can make any game you want as long as your game fits the theme of Alone Together. Alone Together is the theme for this challenge, which means you should be thinking about a game that in some way addresses the idea of alone together, which is, of course, a theme surrounding this weird situation we find ourselves in, doing everything at home, maybe quarantined with only one or two other people. Um, occasionally seeing folks, but it's very different from the way it was a couple months ago. And I wanted to inspire everyone to make games about this change. So, Alone Together is the theme for doing that. And this week, of course, we're going to talk a little more specifically about building out a game and moving forward on the process of producing a prototype with whatever your game making idea is. So, as always, if you're just joining in, just say hi on the chat, give me a wave, and let me know you're here. If you're a Yukodit game maker, you should say hi so we can take attendance and that we know you're here. Just anything you say in the chat, we'll know you're with us. Always fantastic to know you're here. Um, Always fine for you guys to join in later. So if you're watching this video after Tuesday, April 7th, good for you. We do record all of our videos and they are available on our YouTube channel. That's Make Room on YouTube. It's linked from our main homepage at makeroom.elinemedia.com. Easy to find if you want to rewatch any of the stuff I broadcast on Slack. I'm seeing in the chat, it looks like Francis is here. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining. Um, I'm going to go ahead and talk you guys through a little bit of where you should be at right now. So that's my first objective, just to let you guys know where we are in the process of making this game. So you should be hard at work on getting your project ready to go. And there's actually a blog post here on the Make Room website that you can check out to see the sort of process that we're expecting you guys to go through as you make this game. So if you went to the Make Room website here, makeroom.elinemedia.com/online-learning, you would click on blog here. And here's our summary of what you should be working on this week. So it's here on the internet for you to access, and I will talk about it here on the stream for a moment. I'm going to just take it slow in case we've got other folks preparing to join us. I know we've been joined by Christian and Greg on past casts, and I would love to see both of those members of our team in the chat as well. Of course, if they get in late, we can always send them back to watch the video on YouTube. But tell me, how's your week going, guys? Always free to chat me and let me know how things are going. It's been pretty weird here in Manhattan. I don't go outside that much. I went outside today and um it was weird. People are out, but nobody's in a good mood. So, Ali is asking, does this live stream include your New York classes as well? That's a great question. And so these are all public streams. Anyone can watch them. Um, what in the world sound was that I just heard? That was very strange. So typically our New York game studio folks will join us on Mondays and Wednesdays. And hey, Greg, good to see. Um, you guys can join us at 4 o'clock on Mondays and Wednesdays if you're interested in more game development content. So this one is happening at the usual Yukodit time, which is of course 7 on Tuesday. But this one's open to everyone, and the other two live streams, which are on Monday at 4 and Wednesday at 4, are also open to the folks at Yukodit. So if you're on our team here, Greg, Christian, Ali, Francis, any of the folks who are there in person, you guys can watch any of the live casts I'm doing because all of the information I'm putting out is relevant to this same project. And the New York studio as well as the New Jersey studio are all being given exactly the same information about what we're expecting you guys to do. So that's the word on that. And of course, what we're expecting you to do is make a game, right? Whether it's a Unity game or a GameStar mechanic or maybe a Scratch game. We're hoping everyone at our in-person studios and maybe some other folks will join in and make a game on the theme of Never Alone. So hopefully we'll see some creative game making stuff coming through in the next month. Games are due by April 30th. So let's go ahead and I'll just start out by talking about where you guys should be at this point. We've spent a couple classes getting situated and getting set up, and I've given you guys some inspiration for this game making challenge. But now that we're past the phase of getting inspiration, I thought we should probably talk about what are we actually doing here? What are we actually doing? So again, if you were to visit this blog post on the Make Room website, I'll send this to you guys in an email as well in case you don't find it on your browser. You would see that there are two key things that you should be actively working on right now to move your project forward. The first one of those is, of course, to set up the platform where you're going to make the game. And in this case, that's going to be Unity, unless you've decided to use another platform because you don't want to do Unity at home. I hope everybody is definitely on board with using Unity because that's the one that I want you guys to use, and that's the one that I'm going to be teaching throughout the month. So only use GameStar Mechanic or Scratch if you just can't get Unity to work and there's nothing else you can do. Since most of you guys already have Unity and I've taken you through the process of opening a brand new project, you should be set up. And what this says here is by now you should have your game making platform set up and ready for you to work. That means you should have created a new Unity project and added your instructors, which would be me, and then actually just me for this one. I have another co-instructor, but you would probably just add me so I can pull your project and see what you're working on. You'll need to add me as a collaborator. So if you're in the chat, if you're on the Twitch channel right now, I'd love to hear from you guys. And, if you have questions or concerns about this stage of the process, I did definitely get a collaboration invitation from Christian, which means I know people are moving forward on this, getting things set up and rolling. So Christian's already well past this stage and is ready to go into game development. But I'm looking for some other folks as well to um, create a project and add me as a collaborator. Now, if you're having issues with that stuff, I would say don't hesitate. Send me an email because emailing me is how you're going to get any issues in this early stage resolved. So if you're having problems adding me as a collaborator, just send me an email and say, Natalie, I can't do it. I need your help and I will work it out for you. But you need to have a project that I'm connected to so I can send you things and see what you're working on. And of course, you need a new project. And so that means not using the project that we were working on before, which is the first person survival game. So, overall, your first task and something you should be already at work on is getting your game making setup situated and set up correctly and connecting up with me so I can see what you're working on. If you're at that point, the next thing you should be doing is pre production. And pre production is when you come up with the game idea that you are going to make. So, as I've said in some of the previous casts, we are not telling you guys what kind of game we're going to make. It's very different from how we do it in person. Of course, in person, I bring a game and I say, we're going to do, last time it was a survival first person game. And then you guys get creativity in how to implement it. But now that we're all in our own homes, seeing Francis say, I sent it to you in the chat, that's fantastic. I'll follow up with you as soon as I'm off the cast. So A+ for that. I'll look for anybody else to toss their chat in about collaborating anytime throughout the hour. So what I was saying here about pre-production, thinking of the game you want to make, you have to decide which type of avatar you want to use. I know some of you have done that. And then once you've made that decision, you need to create a basic prototype. You may need the standard assets for that. And if you're having issues obtaining the standard assets, just let me know. I will load those into your project for you once we're connected, or I can tell you where to go to download them. If you were watching the cast last week, you saw me load in some avatars that use the standard assets. So, of course, you'll probably want to use them if you're selecting the first person option or the third person car. So, both of those choices are going to require using the standard assets to really quickly create a prototype. If you're doing the third person cat, you'll also need those assets from me, which is another email you should send my way. Or you can chat me at any time throughout the hour of this live cast and let me know you want those assets. I will send them your way. So, overall, these are the two things you should have been working on or be working on this week: setting up your game making station and coming up with your game idea, making a decision about the kind of game you're going to make. If you're there, it's time for you to create a basic prototype and start working on what we call your core mechanic. So, a basic prototype is going to be a scene that's set up with some environment assets and a player avatar. A core mechanic is what players do when they play the game. It's some kind of action or interaction that I can do at the moment when I press play in Unity. So, your next big task is to implement your core mechanic, but you can't do that until you create a basic prototype. So, once you've got your game making setup ready to go and you've decided the game you want to do, you're making a basic prototype so you have a level to play around in and eventually then implement your core mechanic within that level. So, once again, this blog post takes you through exactly what you should be doing. And any links in here, if you follow these, will take you to instructions on how to complete those tasks. So, all of this stuff is here for you guys to help you work on your project. All right. So, the next thing I'm going to show you guys is an example of a project done by another student. Yeah, hey, I'm seeing Ali saying Natalie, Adele, and Greg are having trouble getting on the chat. Can you take a look? I don't really have a way to expedite the process of getting on the chat. I see a number of users here. Um, but I don't see any users that look like they're related to Adele and Greg. So maybe the thing that I would recommend, guys, is sending me an email if you're watching the live cast, but you can't chat. Um, and then we'll try to get whatever is going on kind of resolved. I know you guys were able to get on last week, so I don't know what's going on there. Sometimes it's a browser issue. But make sure you're definitely logged into Twitch if you're having problems using the chat on the channel. So if you're not logged in, you can't chat. You have to be logged in as your account. Other than that, I'm not sure. And I see Francis in the chat as well is talking and saying, I found a game accidentally that would win this theme. Awesome. Share that with us, please. Yes, we would love to check that out. It looks like it's a Roblox game. Fantastic. I'll definitely have to check this out later. Yeah, it's a very ironic, he's saying. I love it. I love it. Yeah, yeah. So really excited about getting inspiration for this. And, I think Roblox is a great place to go for that. It's a little bit similar to what we do with the Endless Mission. Cool. Francis, I'll play your game. All right. So as Greg and Adele are figuring out how to get logged in, I am going to show you guys an example of a project that a student at the New York studio has set up. And I wanted to show you this because this is exactly what I'm looking for you guys to do. So it's an example of someone who's done this process I just explained and is ready to go on to the next phase of production, which would be building her core mechanic. So let's check out Unity. And basically, so this student, again, doing the same challenge, same process. This student created a project and we're connected up here, which is why I was able to pull her project. And over the past, I think, week or two, she's been focused on laying out a simple level. And of course, I haven't done anything in here. I only just downloaded this and was like, what's in here? So I was really impressed to see that she had already designed a level and that she did a nice job of setting up something pretty basic. It looks to me like it's probably something that came with a standard, some type of asset pack that she downloaded from the asset store and then maybe modified a bit to fit the kind of gameplay the student is going to go for. But I see some buildings here. I see an outside scene and I'm curious what the gameplay is going to be, so let's push play here and see the kind of game she's designed. So as I press play, I'm noticing that she's loaded in a first person character controller. And this is the first person character from the standard assets pack. So she probably just dragged that and dropped it right in the scene and then started to modify this by adding various different kinds of 3D assets pulled from the asset store. So to me, this just looks fantastic. I can tell she's put some work into organizing things. Um, Nothing dramatic, she's not making an open world RPG. She's laying out a simple level to prototype in. And I was really amused to see if I go over here, um, there's some bananas in a crate and then some toasts over here, which are amazing references. This student has made a couple other games that used bananas and toast. So I was thrilled to see that these are making a reappearance in her latest game for this game making challenge. So yeah, I'm just going to check out the level. Looks pretty simple. Anything interesting over here? I can go over there, but then I don't fit. We got a taxi. Looks pretty basic. Looks like I could run off the edge if I wanted to, but I probably won't. And of course, with this first-person character controller, I have the ability to run. So, very, very cool. I'm so happy with this because it's in the position it needs to be in for this student to start working on an interaction. So she's got her character, she's got her scene, she's got an environment, and now it's time to make me able to actually do something in the game. So again, what I'm looking for from you guys is this exact same thing. Whether you build a scene like this or do something totally different, what I'm looking for is a project that belongs to you, that has an environment in it, and also a character controller of your choice. Whether that's the cat, whether that's the first person avatar like you saw in this one, or maybe the third person car asset I showed you last week that you could use to make a pickup and delivery game. So those are your choices. This is what you're trying to create. If you got your project to here by next Tuesday, I would be absolutely totally excited and really looking forward to seeing the kind of game that you're getting ready to build. So I'm going to switch over here because last week I mentioned to add me as a collaborator, and I did get a collaboration ad from Christian. So Christian added me to his project, had no problems. And I'm going to hop actually into Christian's Unity project and talk a little bit about how I would go about putting together a prototype like the one I just showed you. So Christian created a blank Unity project and added me as a collaborator, just like I mentioned in the instructions. And I was able to open the project. And when I opened Christian's project, I immediately loaded in the standard assets because I know Christian wanted to do some prototyping for a cat avatar based project. And there's some useful assets in there for that. I also loaded in the third person cat that I've been working on for you guys who are interested in doing a project of that type. So Christian had talked about maybe switching the cat out and including a bird. And I thought that would be great. I'm happy to work on that, but I don't have a bird yet. So I loaded in the cat and I thought he would probably want to prototype with the cat first. And then we would see about changing the way the cat avatar works so that we could make it look like a bird. So I've got my cat loaded in here. I'm going to turn it on by rechecking this. I move the cursor over the scene and I press F and zoom in. There's my cat. So I've loaded this in for Christian. It's ready to go. And I also loaded in a plane for the cat to stand on, just so that Christian has a floor. Now, just as a reminder, if you want to create a floor in your game, just some basic flat surface for your avatar to walk on. You can do that by clicking on create up in the hierarchy, and then you would click on 3D object, and then you would click on plane. And that gives us something basic to work with. It's just small square. And if you want more room to move around in, you can change the scale of that flat square. In this case, you would change the X and the Z. You don't want to change the Y coordinate because that would make the plane thicker. Um, and you don't need the floor to be thick. I just saw, reading in the chat, can I do a dog if I can't do a bird? Answer to that is yes. So, Greg, if you're watching as well, I think you had also requested a dog. And luckily, I have a dog. So I can switch this out and give you guys a dog that works the same way as this cat works. Um, Basically, what I would say is do your prototyping with the cat, because the dog's functionality will be the same as the cat, and give me a few days to add the player controller to the dog model. And then when you're ready, I'll push it to your project and you'll be able to see it looking like a dog and working the exact same way. So the answer is yes, you can do a dog, and I will work up a dog avatar for you in the next few days. So Francis in the chat is asking what model formats. Um, are you talking about 3D modeling? If so, then most formats most formats that you would generate in a 3D modeling software like Maya or Blender are supported. FBX is the most common one that I see when I download assets. If you have a specific one that you work with, just put it in the chat and I can see if I know off the top of my head. If I don't, the best way to answer your question is also just to Google, is format X or format Y supported in Unity? However, I would say most formats are supported because Unity is meant to work with most 3D modeling pipelines. Um, so for your software, I would check to see if it's supported. Now, I'm reading Francis saying I can convert 3ds Max files to Unity files. There is no native Unity file type. So there are all kinds of files that are in a Unity project. So for example, let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to actually open this cat and dog. You see there's a dog in here. Just doesn't work yet, so it doesn't come here. If we click on model, and I look down here, you see how this is a cat.fbx. FBX is not a Unity file format. That's a 3D modeling format, a standard one that most 3D modeling software you can use to export. So if you did want to actually work on a 3D modeling project, most of the file formats that you can export as are going to come right into Unity with no problems. All right. So dog is definitely possible. We'll do that. You can model in 3ds Max and see if you can import it into Unity. And if you're having issues with that, I would say definitely just email me directly and I'll help you troubleshoot if you're having an issue. One thing I do always say about if you want to do 3D modeling for a video game, don't start out by trying to model a human being. Instead, say to yourself, I'm going to make one or two props, like a crate or a vase, and see if I can get those into my game. All right. So back to what I was saying about setting up an environment. I've got this cat loaded in and I put a plane underneath it so it has something to walk on. And I'm just going to run this and make sure my cat works the way it's supposed to. Ali is saying in the chat, yeah, a human being would be too difficult. So fun fact, I actually did a summer camp last year, you guys, and someone tried to do a human model during the camp, and he spent the entire week working on that person's face. He said he was gonna model, rig, and animate the avatar in a week, and he was, like, not done with the face by the end of the week, so it was pretty intense. So, I'm checking this out, and the cat's running. Camera's working right, I can kinda spin around, she runs away from me, but when I press the jump button, she's not jumping, and I realized doing this that I've got a setting in my avatar here. This will be important for you guys. If I click on the plane, I need to set the layer as ground so that she detects that she's standing on the ground and she knows that she can jump. So, this is a setting that prevents you from being able to double jump unless you want to specifically allow that. And she has to be standing on the ground in order to successfully jump. So now that I've labeled it as ground, the cat can jump in the air, and I've got a nice floor to work with. So that's really the basics of how you would set up a prototype. You put in your avatar, you put in your floor, you've got a prototype. And that would be, honestly, I would say the minimum viable thing that you guys need to do. If you can get me connected with a project, an avatar in with a floor, you're in the right direction. But what I wanted to do is show you guys, what comes next, right? So if you add me to a project, you've got your floor, you've got your avatar, now what? I want to add more stuff and I want to start working on the game. So I've got this cat in here and I'm going to use this as an example. But of course, you could do this with any of the avatar options. So, because I have the standard assets now in Christian's project, I'll show you. This would work the same way if I was going to do the car. Looks like I'm missing the prefab for that right now. Alas. All right. I won't demo that because I didn't load the prefab for the car into Christian's project since I knew he was using the cat. But needless to say, I could put the car on the plane and drive it around, just like I would moving the cat around. So, the next thing I want to do is say, okay, the general idea with this was to build some kind of environment for the cat to move around in. And if you remember, I had set this cat up with an attack. So, let's look to the side. She can kind of nudge and nose things, and I want things for her to start to interact with. And of course, that nose jab won't do anything yet, but I need something for her to attack before I program the attacking to actually work. So I took the liberty in Christian's project of loading in a folder called Tune Furniture. And I found this in the asset store. Here it is. I'll just show you guys the asset. I searched for free furniture, and this nice asset pack came up that has some basic kinds of things that you would see inside a house. I think this is the complete set. And I was like, oh, that's so perfect. That's exactly what I want for this cat situation. Um, yep. So I see Christian saying, for me, the assets don't pop up in Unity. And that is because I have not pushed them yet. So, as a reminder, when you're doing collaboration with me, you'll need to push and pull. And you can see I've got that blue arrow right here, which means the assets that I've got in here are not yet available to Christian. So I'm going to actually push this to him right now since he's got the project open. And I'll click publish now so he can have access to those as well. And that's actually a key step when you're creating a project. If you're having trouble getting me as a collaborator, make sure that you've actually pushed some version of your project into the collab cloud, because I won't be able to see your project until you've clicked on that push arrow and you've got the green check mark. So I'm sending those over to you now, Christian, and you should soon be able to see couches and beds and refrigerators. And I'll show you guys a little bit of how to play around with these. Awesome. So just to make sure I don't overwrite anything Christian does, I'm going to do my usual technique of creating my own scene in his project. So Christian will know not to edit my scene. He can create his own scene by clicking on a scene and doing Control D. He would press Control D and then rename the new scene whatever he wanted, or he could edit the scene cat demo. All right, so I pulled some Tune furniture, I loaded in this floor, and now this is what I would do to start setting things up. I would load up my furniture. I have to tell you guys, I have no idea why, but some of these assets, when you look at them in the project, look rotated, but then when you pull them in, they're right side up. So, don't worry too much if you see something like that. What I normally do is I'll open the prefab folder and just drag it in the scene and see what happens. So, we've got a lot of stuff in here, and it's also pretty big. Maybe that's a little big for this cat. So if I were to drag in something like this and I'm like, I'm going to make a bedroom. I mean, maybe that's realistic though. Like, cats are not that big. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So I've got this here sort of sitting on the floor, and I'm going to just scale this down. It looks like the scale's a little bit up from 1. That looks a little bit better in relation to the cat. Cool. Okay. So I loaded my bed, and this is where you can really get creative and just say, you know, what do I want to do? I'm going to put this chair here. That's enormous. Let's see what happens if I scale it down. Okay, that's tiny. So, you got to play with this. And the key is to, honestly, what I like to do is type in even numbers, because then I know I don't have it stretched weirdly. So let's try 20. Still not big enough. We'll try 40. Yeah, that's getting a little bit nicer. Put that over there. And then maybe a little rotation. Starting to look like someone's bedroom. Maybe I want a lamp. I don't see any lamps in these assets, alas, but I do have a bookcase. Put that like that. You get the idea. One thing I wanted to tell you guys, when you're doing this type of design, if you're trying to lay things out and you're having a hard time, like, a classic problem with this is you start dragging it up and down and it's like, is it overlapping with the floor? Because I don't want it like sinking through the plane. One thing you can do is, while you're grabbing this handle to move a game object, press and hold Control. So the button on the keyboard that's in the lower left-hand side of the keyboard, it says CTRL on it. That's Control. And if you hold down on that key, what happens is things sort of snap instead of moving smoothly. And that snapping can be really helpful. So, for example, in the case of dragging it up and down, it's snapping right to the floor for me without me having to like really detail adjust it, which is so useful. I just, you know, so much better, right? Rather than this. So I strongly recommend, if you want things to line up nicely, hold down on that control button and drag things snappily along the floor. Cool. Okay. So I've got this set up. I'm going to run the game and just see like kind of what I'm seeing here with the cat. Nice. Okay. This looks kind of like an environment a cat might live in. I'm on board. Okay. And so, of course, because, in game making, nothing's easy, I can walk right through it. And I think most of you guys know why that would be. Why would I be able to walk right through that? Say it in the chat. All right. So I just noticed Christian is saying, for me, it was saying there was a conflicting file. Christian, if you have a conflicting file, just do the one that says choose mine. Choose mine. It's probably a conflicting file as far as the scene goes. And if you made any changes, I'd want your changes to override mine. Collider is the correct answer. Absolutely. So Collider is, of course, the answer. And if you were building an environment in this situation, the best way to add a collider to an object like this, clicking on it And you can add a collider called a mesh collider. So add component, mesh collider. That's actually a type of collider that wraps itself all the way around the curves and edges of the object that you're looking at. So instead of being like a box or a circle, it's just sort of wrapped around it like wrapping paper. And let's see if that works. I'm going to do one more thing here so the cat can jump on it. I'm going to set it as ground. I'm going to say yes, change children because there's a few things underneath and I want the cat to be able to jump on everything. Let's see if that works. Didn't seem to work. All right. Where is my mesh collider? Why are you not working? All right. Let's instead try adding something a little bit simpler. Let's try adding a box. Sometimes those can work a little funny. There's my box. You need to add the mesh as the target in the mesh collider. Oh, thank you. That's so interesting. I have never done that. Let's try doing it on here. Wow, that is so weird. Cool. Thanks for the tip. I'm going to keep the box on there because I'm thinking that's going to be an easier way to set this one up. So let me drag this over here and just see if I can get this so the cat can walk on it. Always appreciate anonymous tips. Thank you. All right. So the box worked for me because I was like weirded out with that mesh collider situation. And I would probably recommend that you guys do it this way as well, just to keep things simple. Um, but what I started with here was to say that you're throwing things in. You need to put a collider on them, which Christian rightly pointed out, if you want to be able to stand on it, jump on it, and not just walk right through it. And if you're doing it this way, this is how you're going to want to sort of start to set up your scene. Hey, Greg, good to see you. All right. Yeah, I'm seeing Greg from Eline Media is in the chat. Guys, welcome, Greg. So, just so cool to have folks here from Eline. Greg, thank you so much for joining. I need you to give me advice on some of this stuff all the time. You guys, Greg is a professional Unity developer, so of course, he's probably the person who should really be teaching on this Twitch stream. But thank you so much for joining, Greg. It's wonderful to see you just hanging out on Twitch with us and watching this amazing cat situation I have set up. We have about 15 more minutes, and I wanted to show you guys a version of this that I would do if I was going to set up the game that I was talking about that would use a car. So, again, I've showed you a bunch of stuff you could do with the cat. And, this same process would go if you were going to set up a city and um, a car delivery game situation, which I know Francis had wanted to do a car. Francis, you were saying that you added me as a collaborator. Yes? Let me know if your project is something that I should be seeing because if I can pull it, that'll absolutely be fantastic. Cool, awesome. So I should be able to check out Francis's project. And Francis, I'll have to see if I can pull your project and show it on this stream next week. So I just switched over to I will let you know. I will let you know for sure, Francis. I will tell you if I'm having issues finding it. We'll work it out. Um, should be good. And this in the final, yeah, in the final 15 minutes, I wanted to show you guys what I'm a little bit of what I'm thinking with the car. I do have the car loaded into this other project here. So I've switched out of Christian's project. So, Christian, I'm not in your project anymore. What you're seeing here is another project I've been prototyping with that's my own. And I do have the standard assets in here that include the car prefab. I don't know why I was missing that in the other project, but it wasn't there. So let's create a blank scene. I'll go car example. And this is again how I would start out prototyping if I wanted to do the car. So first I would create a plane just like I did before, and I'm going to make it nice and big so I have a lot of ground. This is looking a little bit brown, and that's actually because I'm not on auto generate lighting. So I'm going to automatically generate lighting just so I can see things. And then instead of putting the cat avatar, I would put in the car. So Francis in the chat is asking, how do you add controller support? And Christian is asking, how do I make my own scene? So let me address controller support first. There is actually an area of a Unity project. You would go to Edit Project Settings and then clicking on Input here. This is where you control all of the input settings for a game. And then what you need to do is, based on the code you're using, take input from a joystick. So in horizontal and vertical, often it's already set up to take movement, but it depends on the way your code works. So at this stage, rather than trying to get controller input set up, I would prototype gameplay and then see which buttons you're pressing to do things in the game. And then based on that, come into the input settings here and set it up so that when you press a button on a controller, it's taking it in the code through the input settings and doing what you want in the game. So I can do a separate tutorial for you guys later about adding controller support. But my baseline recommendation for doing Unity games is to start out using keys on the keyboard and then add in a controller once you've figured out if your gameplay is fun. Christian is asking, how do I make my own scene? There's two ways to make your own scene in Unity. One of them would be to going to the scenes folder or really anywhere in your project, but I would definitely say the scenes folder is where you want to go because you want to stay organized. And then opening your scenes folder, you would right click anywhere in the gray area over here in the project. So I right click, I'm going to click create. I'm going to not going to click. I'm just going to slide up to create. And then I would go to scene. So if I click on scene, it creates a new scene for me. And then I'm going to type the name of the scene. So I'm just going to type example. And then double clicking on that, I would save my old scene and then find myself in the new scene. So that's how you would create your own scene. Super useful. There's one other way of doing it, which is clicking on a scene in the scenes folder. You can also press Control D, which would duplicate the scene you've clicked on. So I'm going to go back. I've created this blank scene with a plane in it. I would press D, and then car example 1 comes up, which is the duplicate of the scene. I'm going to delete that. You don't need to click on create. You just need to hover the mouse over it. Once the mouse is hovering, then you slide down, and the only thing you actually click on is scene. So again, right clicking in the project, slide up to create, and then clicking on scene allows you to create your own scene. That's how you're going to get there. All right, so here I am. I'm going to just drag in some stuff with the car just to give an example of how I would start setting this one up. Here's my folder here in the standard assets. I'm going to open prefabs and drag my car in. So I have a nice surprise here of having a really weird looking car. And this is here because I was doing some playing with trying to color that car in. So it's pretty bizarre looking. And when it comes in for you guys, it's going to look more like this. And if you want to color it in, you guys should stay tuned and I'll show you a little bit more about how to work with materials on 3D meshes. Um, but for now, I'm going to just leave these yellow wheels on here and have the car be white. And say, let's say I wanted to again create a prototyping scene for this. This goes out to you, Francis, because I know you're interested in doing a car. I found I think I may have shown you guys this, but I wanted to reiterate it in case I didn't. I found an asset pack on the asset store called City Tools. This comes with some nice basic stuff for building out a city, including some roads. So just a nice kind of basis for building out a place for your car to drive around in. And for this, we were just talking about colliders, and this road does not come with a collider. So, if I do something like this where I'm like putting the car over here on the road, that's going to drop right through that. So what I would suggest is I would put a plane underneath it and just put it right underneath that 3D road so it's supporting the car with the collider on the plane, and you don't have to worry about adding a collider to every single piece of road that you put out. So this is how you're going to kind of want to prototype here. You're going to put a piece of road in. You can just duplicate it, hold down on control and drag that piece out so that it connects with the piece previous to it and really easily create a line of road. So seeing something like this would be fantastic from you, Francis. And if there's anybody else on here who's equally interested in doing something with a car, the first thing you're going to need is a road. So think about laying something like this out and pushing it my way, and you'll be doing absolutely fantastic. So, Christian, I still see you're saying you're having an issue creating a scene. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. Um, Again, make sure you're following the same process that I'm doing. Um, right clicking, it's the right mouse button anywhere in the gray area of the project folder of a folder in the project, and sliding up to create and then finding scene. If you're having problems, just describe exactly what you're trying to do and I'll help troubleshoot. Meantime, Francis is talking about needing a car asset. um, when I look for 3D assets, I always look on the Unity Asset Store. That's because I know that the asset store is going to provide me with prefabs that already come outfitted to work in Unity. And it's just a lot easier to deal with Unity Asset Store assets than it is to pull things in from, you go to a site like TurboSquid and find 3D models, but a lot of time those aren't set up to easily work with a game. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going to do a car game and you want to find a car other than this one, I would look on the Unity Asset Store and see what you can find. That said, it's going to be a little bit difficult to, set up a car other than this model because this one's outfitted really nicely for its wheels to turn when you press left and right. Um, so, you can kind of see it over there. I don't have the camera set up, but you can see how the wheels turn as the car moves back and forth. And, if you want that to happen, it has to be included with the asset. So all cars coming into a game as a downloaded asset are not necessarily going to work that way. And one way I would audit potential prefabs to use for a project like this would be to read the description of the asset and see, you know, does it come with a script to let you control the car? How is that script going to work? So, you do have an option to substitute 3D meshes in for the ones that are being used in this asset, but it would be definitely be some trial and error and seeing if the look and feel stayed the same. If, for example, you put something else in for the body of the car besides this model. Um, this hang on, I'm seeing a few questions. Thank you so much for chatting, guys. I'm going to go to Christian's question first, and then I'm going to loop back to Francis. Christian is saying it only gives options for collaborate, but not for create. That is that is very weird. Um, so another option that you have is to click on create over here in the like upper left hand corner of the project window. So the project window, of course, is that like bottom rectangle there in Unity. And right under the word project is the word create. So that's another place where you can access that menu. So I would click on whatever folder where you want to make your scene and click on this create button. And then if you slide up here, you'll see the word scene, and that should let you create a scene in that same folder that you had clicked on. So that might be an option that is going to help you get around the issue if you're not seeing create in this menu. I'm not sure why it wouldn't be there, but you should be able to see it right here in the project window. So I see a question coming in from Francis. Is there a name of the asset? I don't exactly know which asset you're talking about, but I would say the car asset that comes in the standard assets, it's just called car. So if that's the one you want to use, you just need to download the standard assets, go into the vehicles folder, and then car, and then prefabs. That's where that car is. So Christian, will you tell me, are you unable to click on the create menu there in the project folder, or is there another error? Let me know what your error is for creating a scene. And then as we're coming here to 8 o'clock, which is 1 hour of streaming, let me know if you guys have any final questions before we sign off for today. Can you show how to set up the follow camera again? Absolutely. All right. So I've got the car loaded in. And if I wanted the camera to follow the car, I would first find the cameras folder in the standard assets. So there's a folder here. I've got standard assets, cameras, and then in that cameras folder, I would open prefabs. And then come down here and drag this all the way to the left so I can see the names of the cameras. I'm going to close up car so I can see my hierarchy. And the one I want for the car is, I think, the multi-purpose rig. So I'm going to drag that and drop it into the hierarchy so it's there in my scene. That camera works really nicely. It automatically targets the car. So it's really easy for me to just drag it in. It automatically knows I want to follow the car. And the only thing I have to do at that point is I need to delete the original camera that was in the scene, or I can just deactivate it. Once that's deactivated or deleted, this is the only camera that's operating, and that's the one you'll see when you press play. So I'll press play here. And it moves over to hang right behind the car. And then as the car moves forward, it's going to move forward behind the car. So that's looking pretty nice. That car is really cool because it leaves like a tire track. I think that's pretty sweet. And then as you're working with this camera, if you want to change the settings, there's a few things in the inspector that are pretty easy to understand. Um, Move speed. So if you wanted to move along behind the car faster, is one thing that you might want to change. Turn speed could be helpful. Yes, I think probably you could. modify the mesh. Okay, great. Christian fixed the problem. Excellent. Fantastic. I was getting a little bit like, I have no idea what to do, Christian. So I'm glad that you restarted Unity because that was going to be my next suggestion. Um, Smooth turn, spin turn. There's some different things you could do to adjust the camera if you want to change the way the camera interacts with that car. Again, this multi-purpose rig is not specifically for a car game. It's just for following an avatar. So you may want to adjust a little bit of how that camera works, depending on the dynamic you want to create in your game. So my feeling is sometimes with this camera that it's a little bit like it lags behind that car a little, and I always feel like the car is going to, like, get away from the camera. So my first thought would maybe be to try to give it a little bit of a faster speed so it can keep up with the car. You see how I can almost accelerate out of the screen, and that's, like, really awkward to me. So that would probably be the first thing that I would, oh, no! That would be the first thing that I would start to play with if I was using that camera car combo. And then secondarily, I would try to figure out what is the best way of integrating the meshes that I want to use with the way this car is already set up to work. So can I use a different mesh or do I need to take this one and recolor it? So let me see what's going on in the chat today. Christian looks like he's got his project working. Um, yep, and Francis talking about the stuff we're doing with the camera. Excellent. So any other questions before I sign off? Type them in the chat. Ali has been quiet. Of course, Ali, we would love to see you do a project for this as well, but we understand you're a college student. um, and in general, I wanted to just reiterate that what we're looking for at this point is a very basic prototype scene that I can pull and see that includes your avatar and some kind of environment that that avatar can move around in. So for next week, what I would love to do is start off the cast by opening up some of your games and seeing what you guys have put together. So I know Christian's going to work on a scene with a cat, and hopefully I'll be able to push through a dog so you can use a dog. Um, and then Francis, I would be looking for some kind of gameplay situation with driving a car around on a road. Greg, if you're listening but you're not in the chat, of course, I will push you a dog as well. And this is to Greg in our class, not Greg from Eline Media. There are two Gregs. The Greg who's in our class. If you are listening but not in the chat, I will hopefully get in touch with you so we can get connected up on a Unity project. We'll just have to send some emails so we can figure out the easiest way to get that to happen. And then I will push through a dog avatar to you as well so that you can start building out maybe like a neighborhood scene. I know you had talked about doing um, a dog walking situation, which is something that I would love to see you work on. So um, Francis is saying he's having a compiler error. Of course, that's an inevitable part of working with Unity. And it's one of the reasons why you should make sure I'm connected with you as a collaborator so I can help you troubleshoot. Um, often if you're having a console error, with like the red stop sign, there's something going on in a script. And I'll make my final comment be about that, which is that um, sometimes assets come in with errors in the script and you have to delete the script that came in. If you can't read the code and figure out what's going on with that asset, deleting the script will often resolve a problem you're having in your game. Francis is asking, do you think there's some time when you could help me? Hey, Francis, send me an email. Send me an email and I will definitely help you troubleshoot your game and get you going in the right direction. And folks, sorry for the infinite tessellation here. Here's my email address. So if you do have questions and you want to talk to me off of the cast, the best thing you would want to do is send me an email at this address and just say, "This is the problem I'm having. Can you answer my question?" Even just one sentence is totally fine. You don't have to write me an essay about Unity. Just let me know what problems you're having and get in touch with me on email. Because the truth of the matter is, since we're not together in person anymore, um, this class can happen whenever you have free time. You could work on this game anytime during the week that you're inspired to do game making. And I'm not going anywhere because I'm stuck in my apartment for the foreseeable future, just like everybody else is. So you're totally invited and encouraged to get in touch with me to work on your game individually, as well as coming to these live casts and watching the examples I give on the cast. So, my goal when I broadcast here is just to give you guys ideas and some tutorials and instructions for how to get things done. But then for your game, reach out to me on email and let me know what you're working on, what you need help with, because I can help you in a much more effective way if we do it one on one outside of this lovely format of a Twitch live cast, which is, of course, public and directed at everybody. um, so that's my statement on that to Francis and anybody else that needs help. I'm really excited about what you guys are working on. Christian's definitely making some fantastic progress troubleshooting. Francis, also, I know you've been wanting to do a racing game for some time, and so I'm excited that we finally have the opportunity for you to work on that. I know you're not always excited about the game genres that I pick. So now you get to pick your own and really go to town and make something awesome. And then to my other students, I think Thomas and Greg, who I haven't heard from in the chat, but if you're watching, the same thing goes out to you, which is I want to see what you're working on. Let's collaborate on a project and I will start helping you work on your game. So it's never too late to get in touch with me, email me, and start working on a game for this challenge. All right, guys. So it's been an hour and I'm going to sign off the live cast. We will be here next week on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. And by then, I hope to play your basic level prototypes with your avatar. Um, oh, I saw Ali had a question. He asked, "What's the deal with the first person shooting game that we designed in class?" Ali was saying, that game, we decided to put it on hold. We're putting it on hold because we all needed to be in person there to coordinate the design we were doing for the enemies in that game. And since we're all not here in person, we switched to a game design challenge where we could all make our own games since we're all in different places, and making a game individually is going to be easier when you can't collaborate with people in real life. So, my hope is at some point we can go back to working on the enemies for our first person survival game. But for now, we'll be looking for some really exciting individual projects. All right. Thanks again for checking out the live cast this week. Be in touch with me about game development and game making because I am here to support you guys and continue bringing your projects to be the awesome things that we're imagining. Um, but for now, I'm going to sign off and I will talk to you guys next week on Tuesday at 7. Thanks for listening. This is Natalie signing off.